Good morning. Happy Friday, February 1st, although it may not be Friday, February 1st. When you watch this, it is when I am taking a few minutes to film this. I have a meeting in a little bit, and I thought, well, I have a few minutes to do my January progress report. So here's my first progress report since I started posting these videos on YouTube. Thanks so much for all the support and kindnesses you have shared with me on Facebook and YouTube. I appreciate it. And it is getting a little bit easier to put this out and feel not quite so about it. So thank you for that. January, I did not read as much as I had hoped. I came very close to 4 books read. Didn't make it. I have a couple of hours left on an audiobook I'm listening to, a nonfiction audiobook, which will be included in my February wrap up. There's a robin on the tree branch out front, outside of my window, so I'm very easily distracted. It's a very dreary day, so it's nice to see a red-breasted robin outside your window, right? So I did get 3 done. My goal is for a month to meet my yearly goal, and so I'm hoping to catch up a little bit in February. I have already started a new book for today, as well as it's dance competition season, which means for me, my granddaughter dances, and that is an all-day event in a competition. And so I watch her dances and her company dances, but I don't watch every single dance, and I'm able to, during the breaks and different things, I'm able to read on my Kindle, so I'm really excited about that. I've downloaded a couple of books for me to take a look at tomorrow and see which one really keeps me going. So this was the month of mysteries. All 3 of the books I read during this month were mysteries. That's not going to always be the case, but it was my intention to read more mystery novels this year, and I've definitely hit the mark with that. The first one I read was new to me, Rhys Bowen. I think it's Rhys Bowen, not Rice. Rhys Bowen? I don't know. I was drawn by the plot of it. I'm not sure where it came into my purview, probably social media, but The Tuscan Child, the plot was intriguing to me, and it ended up with 3 stars, but I, for a while, almost didn't finish it. So it's a dual timeline. A pilot is shot down at the beginning of the book, and he recovers in a small community in Tuscany during the war. And then later in the present day time frame of the book, he dies, and his daughter comes to where he lives to sort through his things and finds a love letter to a woman she'd never heard of, and there's an implication there that freaks her out a little bit. And so she decides to go to Tuscany and discover what happened to him after he was shot down. She knew he had been shot down in the war and recovered and had an injury, but she did not know anything about that time, and neither of her parents ever spoke of it. And she wasn't particularly close to her dad. So she goes to Tuscany to find out what happened, and she meets a bunch of people there, and she asks them, questions about her dad. And I think the problem was I didn't really like her much. I didn't really get a sense of development there with her. I liked her dad better and the people that were in his timeline better. I liked the Tuscan scenery, the food, the descriptions of Tuscany, the festivals. I liked the people that lived there. I liked where she lived. I liked that was probably why I kept reading, was Tuscany. So I gave it 3 stars because it ended up redeeming itself a bit in the end, in the plotting and the way that it developed in his timeline. But yeah, it wasn't my favorite. And I don't know if I'll read another one of hers or not. I'm kind of on the fence about that. I've heard a lot of my friends read her novels, and some of them are better than others, and maybe this one was a departure from her normal style. I don't know. She gets good feedback from folks, so it may have just been me. It may have just been the timing. It was after Christmas. I was distractible. But it took me several weeks to read it, and I gave it 3 stars. Okay, the second book I read was The Mysterious Affair at Styles. As you may have seen in one of my other videos, Agatha Christie is my favorite all-time crime mystery writer, probably always will be. This was her first, published in 1921. I decided it was January. I just acquired this from the book depository, and so I thought I'll start out with her very first novel again. It's a reread for me. Have not read it in a very long time. So I liked it. I gave it 4 stars. This is not my favorite Agatha Christie. As you may know, Miss Marple is my favorite detective. Poirot is not my favorite detective, but I like him. I tolerate him. I like him a lot. But this was, you could tell, I think, I could tell it was her first, and Captain Hastings was a little clunky at times. That relationship, I think, developed more deeply and more solidly as she went along. There were a lot of characters, which there typically are, and yeah, it was good. I mean, I gave it 4 stars. The premise of this novel is that a woman whose name now escapes me, Mrs. Inglethorpe, she is poisoned in the night, and lots of people live at Styles, her estate, and so there's guilt cast upon almost every one of them at some point in the novel, which is characteristic of a Christie plot, so you're never really sure. Poirot, again, genius at coming up with these small nuanced details that you later don't think, you can't think and imagine why this is even something he's looking at, and then later you're like, oh. She was poisoned, so they look at the cocoa, which continually made me want to drink cocoa. They looked at all kinds of things, and there's an inquest, which is always fun. There's a lot of intrigue. There's clandestine meetings that you don't know if they're important or not important. Really neat, a surprise for me each time, but I mean, I remembered what happened, but just a nice Christie novel. And then the third one I read was Kate Atkinson's Transcription. Look, it matches my shirt today. This one came out in September. I've been wanting to read it ever since. I love Kate Atkinson, as you may already know from my other video. I love the World War II historical fiction genre. She's always got a nice mystery in there. This one is no different. Dual timeline from wartime, where the main character, Juliet Armstrong, is a spy, or else she's a transcriptionist, and she listens in on conversations and transcribes them. There's a lot of characters, as typical for Kate Atkinson, so you got to keep track of a lot of different people. And then the other timeline is, after the war, she works for the BBC. She works with some of the people that she knew during the war, and then has met some new characters as well that are introduced, and you go back and forth from the 1940 to 1950 something, and I think it was just 1950. So 10-year span. I did love the plot. It was somewhat hectic and frenetic, which is true for her a lot of the time. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, but honestly, I gave it 4.5 stars for my own purposes. Her plots are frenetic and hectic at times, and you do have to pay attention. You really have to pay attention. And there were times where I was like, who was that again? There was a lot of marriage between present day and past in terms of the characters, and I had to sometimes look back and figure out who that was. And so I don't want to give too much away, but it's an intricately detailed story. If you do pick it up, And I highly recommend that you do. If you do, read the author's note at the end. Let me just get a little coffee because I'm obviously scratchy today. Allergies, that time of year, for me anyway. If you do pick it up, and I encourage that you do, read the author's note, which really tells you what made this story come alive within her. And that was fascinating to me. And there were a lot of other aspects of this time that are interesting to me, and of the BBC, and just learning more about the BBC. Not only does she have a great author's note, she actually has several pages of sources from which she curated this, some of the historical facts, and some that she took great liberty with, as she admits in her author's note. She apologizes for a lot of that, but she says, roughly speaking, for everything that could be considered a historical fact in this book, I made something up. And I'd like to think that a lot of the time readers won't be able to tell the difference. And I think that's probably true. She's masterful, to me, masterful at storytelling, plot development, and really intrigue. I would say that's the part of Kate Atkinson that I love the most. So, 3 books in January, not what I'd hoped for, but again, I'm almost finished with an audiobook for February that I'll finish today or tomorrow. Then I've got lots of free time on the weekends during these dance competitions, and hopefully I can get 4, or I'd like to get 5. 5 is my goal for February. I'm also going to look and see if there are some readathons. I have a list of readathons. I'll link below to the YouTube video where I can't think of her name. I feel like it's something witchy or fantastical, but she goes through all of the readathons that she knows about, and she continually updates that list, and I just find that to be fascinating. And I don't usually get to participate fully in a readathon for work purposes, that gets in the way a lot. But this year I'm really going to try harder to make that time, and maybe even take a day off now and again during a readathon to try to get those goals met, or maybe half a day. A day might be a lot, but half a day maybe. Anyway, we'll see what happens. I had a lovely time January, not only reading these great books, but also sharing with you. And again, I appreciate it. If you like this video, please like and comment. Tell me if you're distracted by things when you read, if character development is important to you, and if you like frenetic casts of characters and plotting and character development. Or if you don't, tell me about your reading life. Tell me about why it's different now than it has been, and how you read. And when the mood hits you, how do you choose? All those things I'm curious about. So I hope you'll share more with me about your reading life as I am sharing with you here. And again, I would love if you would share this video with others if you like it, and comment as much as possible. So on this dreary, rainy Friday, I will try to carve out a couple of hours reading with my cat on the couch. I hope you can do that as well. As always, happy reading. Until next time, bye-bye.